Welcome to Galactic Historian. This is a series where I break down the lore of sci-fi universes. If you enjoy this, please like the video and be sure to leave any other questions you have in the comments below on your way out. I'm continuing our little storytime series with another tale from the Star Citizen universe. This is a story about a race, which not only enthused thousands of bystanders and spacers alike, but also saved the lives of thousands of innocent civilians during a natural disaster. This is the story of the Tohil Regatta. Our story starts during the tumultuous final decades of the Mezer era. The brutal and petulant Imperator Samuel Mezer VIII, was assassinated, and his sickly younger brother, Galer Mezer, ascended to become the 9th Mezer Imperator. This led to turmoil inside the UEE, as the transition became complicated quickly. In the midst of this chaos, in 2716, two small-time smugglers found themselves on the drift and banished from the Nix system, their former headquarters. They were Adaya Firmino, a daughter of a wealthy construction magnate from Terra who had left seeking adventure on her own terms, and her pilot and engineer, Oisha Suen. They had been increasingly brash in their attempts to expand their criminal exploits, and this displeased the rulers of Nix, the People's Alliance of Levski, who shut down anyone who was giving the duo work and effectively kicked them out of the system. Unsure about their future, the pair let their RSI constellation drift through the system on low power, while Adaya formulated a plan and Oisha tested the scanner she had just fixed. Oisha saw a strange reading on the scanner and assumed at first that she had done something wrong in her maintenance. After some tweaking, she quickly realized that she was not seeing a glitch, but an undiscovered jump point. They then flew through it and were the first to lay eyes on what would become known as the Tohil system. After the discovery, the duo made their way to the Bremen system, a hotbed of outlaw and rebel activity in the UEE at the time, to talk with some associates of Adaya who had the scanning gear required to do a more in-depth scan of their new system, one that could determine the actual value of their new find. However, after a heavy night of drinking, Oisha woke the next day to discover that Adaya had skipped out. Later, she found that Adaya had claimed the discovery of the system for herself. What followed was a media blitz, as Oisha stepped forward with evidence it was her scanners that found the system, and a bitter dispute began between the two former comrades. Eventually, both would share credit for the discovery, but as investigations into why the two were in an unclaimed outlaw system in the first place continued, their criminal past became public knowledge, causing both of them to flee. Meanwhile, military pathfinders flooded in to scan for the value of this new system. They found it lacking in resources and any real habitable planets. On top of all of that, the only way to access the system was through the outlaw and rebel system of Nix. With the Empire still in turmoil from the death of Samuel Mezer, the UEE passed on claiming the system. 10 years later, another jump point was discovered leading into the Tohil system, placing Tohil on the Perry line. However, once again, the military realized that it was far too expensive to attempt to guard the system. This meant that Tohil was more or less unmonitored by the UEE. As a result, many curious outlaws, rebels, and smugglers ventured into the system, especially those who didn't fit in with the utopian People's Alliance of Levski. One of these ships found themselves damaged in their transit and were forced to make a desperate landing on Tohil 3. Now, this planet is a water world with no landmass. However, it does have something close: massive floating botanical clusters that dotted the surface. The desperate ship landed on one of these floating flower beds, and to their surprise, the structure held together. Soon, smugglers began to use the floating botanical masses as locations for dead drops and hideouts. Words slowly filtered out about the unique biomasses, and soon scientists, eco-tourists, and businesses came to Tohil 3. This led to the foundation of a landing zone on one of the largest botanical masses, named Amadon Island. While the development of the settlement was slow at first, it picked up over time as more and more scientists, smugglers, and refugees came to the system seeking adventure and new lives. Environmentalists feared the rapid development might harm the island, but as the botanical masses seemed to show no sign of strain, they were mostly ignored. The spectacular vistas from the island made the location very desirable to the ultra-wealthy, who saw the island as a place to get away from it all. This meant they were walking side by side with rebels, outcasts, and smugglers, turning Amadon Island into a melting pot of humanity, with a picturesque skyline of modern architecture blended with nature. As Tohil began to develop, a local historian and ship enthusiast began researching the history of the system and started unearthing many of the old smuggling dead drops all over Tohil 3. He decided to organize a tour of these locations in 2803, which quickly became an annual event nicknamed the Tohil Regatta. This tour would soon include a race where participants were timed as they ferried marked crates between the old smugglers' dens. The fastest ship would win and earn the title of the Courier's Cup. In between the legs of these races, smugglers would rub elbows with wealthy elites, swapping stories and drinks. It was one of the few places and times when class divisions dissolved, as what was important was a passion for ships and the race. As a result, the event soon attracted people from all over the UAE to watch and participate. A native of the island, Iggy DiCarlo, grew up with a passion for the regatta. When he was old enough, he got work in a luxury ship repair shop and saved his credits until he could buy his own ship to enter the race. In 2826, he entered the race for the first time, but lost. He was confused at this loss as he knew the biomasses like the back of his hand, and entered again the next year, only to lose again. The regatta became an obsession as he would lose year after year to newer ships with better components. That all changed in 2844, when he purchased an old, used 600i, which at the time was a mid-sized transport and not a luxury ship as it is today. Naming it the Jacinto, he carefully modified and upgraded the ship until the time came for the 2847 regatta. With the most advanced ship he had ever owned and an experienced crew, Captain DiCarlo was convinced he would win. In fact, the Jacinto did very well, leading the race in one of the last legs. That's when the ship received a distress call from Amadon Island. Without hesitation, Captain DiCarlo ordered his crew to break away from the race and make for the island at full speed. This order confused his crew, who knew this action would cripple their chances at winning the race, but they complied. As the ship arrived out of Quantum over the city, Captain DiCarlo knew immediately something had gone terribly wrong. Half of the island was sinking into the vast ocean of the planet. Once tall buildings were vanishing quickly into the waves below, and countless people were clinging to buildings and rooftops with flags, bed sheets, towels, and anything they could use to signal for help. Many of these people were tourists and visitors in town for the regatta and had no means of escape. The situation was catastrophic, and DiCarlo knew it. He called for help from the other ships participating in the regatta to return to help. While most had ignored the initial distress call, thinking it was a ruse to pull people away from the race, the actions and call for aid from DiCarlo convinced the officials to call off the race and direct the regatta ships to aid in a rescue attempt. When they arrived, they were in shock, not believing their own eyes, as they watched half of this decades-old city slip under the ocean of Tohil 3. When the Jacinto had loaded to capacity, Captain DiCarlo turned his attention to taking charge of the operation. Using his knowledge of the city and his own quick thinking, he directed ships to rescue the stranded people on Amadon Island, eventually saving countless lives due to his quick thinking and deep knowledge of his hometown. In the aftermath of the tragedy, more restrictions were placed on building on Tohil 3, and, in an unfortunate twist, the officials of Tohil 3 canceled the regatta. The fear was that the popularity of the contest brought too many people to the planet and placed more stress on the biomass islands. Though a small group of enthusiasts continue the tradition today and maintain the race sites in hope that the future race will be brought back. Nevertheless, the regatta will never be forgotten by the residents of Tohil, as the race that would end up saving them in their time of great need. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons on screen now for helping me make this content. If you enjoy this, please consider becoming a Patreon yourself. Did you enjoy the story? Interested in hearing more tales from the verse? Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, remember, ex Historia ad Astra.